Anytime you dangle a game that takes place in the exclusion zone of Chernobyl in front of me, it immediately piques my interest. Add in that this game contains Chernobyl in the title in some form, and now I'm sitting straight up in my chair. I may have stared at this game on the Steam store multiple times, and recently I finally picked it up, thinking it would be perfect for an October review. Well, here we are. Chernobylite is the name of a new element that was found by the protagonist, one Dr. Igor Kiminuk. He lost his wife Tatiana around the time of the incident, and the game starts with him riding a train while she speaks to him, asking him to wake up. He steps out of the train and finds himself in a foggy, windy forest, with lightning striking the ground near you. Igor continues to navigate the forest as he sees Tanya's spirit, and you soon pick up a rifle, at which point you are given a pretty basic tutorial on combat. After being overwhelmed by some strange beings, you find yourself in Igor's workshop, where he creates a portal generator out of a drill. You're now back in the forest with two soldiers, aiming to get into a factory. Inside, you find some Chernobylite and start to get stalked by an ominous figure. You escape into a wormhole, and a few minutes later, find yourself in a rundown warehouse. Now the game truly begins. Although the intro seems fairly lengthy, it does a great job at setting the expectations of the game. You're out to survive and solve the mystery of your missing wife. In order to do this, you'll have to explore various areas of the exclusion zone, picking up clues and completing objectives given to you by various characters. So once you get into the warehouse, you turn it into a makeshift base. From here, you look out at the world and choose what you and your squad mates want to do that day. You are given a list of tasks and select who is doing what. At first, you only have one friend, Olivier, but you can eventually recruit a few other characters to help you out. These characters act independently of each other and must do things on their own. You cannot send out teams, which is a slight problem since your guys can take damage and need to heal up. It would also make more sense to be able to send out squads instead of keeping everyone on solo missions, but it does help lend to the atmosphere, I suppose. Once you choose what Igor is going to be tasked with for the afternoon, you open a wormhole and teleport to the area in which the mission takes place. Now you run around in typical FPS fashion, looking for anything that may help you out in your base, while avoiding soldiers from a faction known as the NAR, or any other threats that you might come across. The game tends to focus heavily on stealth. Igor is a doctor/scientist, not a military man. Although he is trained on the basics of firearms, he won't last long when bullets are flying his way. Instead, you are encouraged to use foliage and other objects to stay out of sight. Thankfully, the game is very lenient on the stealth mechanics, with you having to be practically face to face with the opposition before they start to shoot. This is actually pretty welcome, but the fact that you are able to duck into almost any shrub is even better. It allows you to hide until you can unleash a stealth attack to quietly take down the enemy. If you do get into a firefight, Igor does have a few firearms available to him. The game explains that the guns that the NAR uses are all biometrically locked, so he can't pick up an AK off of a corpse. But you do get a pistol fairly early on, with a shotgun, AK, crossbow, and a few other weapons available to be crafted in your hideout. The gunplay is smooth enough, which is good because there will be a few times where stealth just won't work and you'll need a more Rambo-like approach to things. Even saying that, combat is clearly not the emphasis in Chernobylite. There's going to be a lot of walking around the exclusion zone looking for items and objective markers, with the only sounds being your footsteps. If you're a fan of guns blazing action, Chernobylite is not the game for you. Story definitely takes the priority, but it works out very well in practice. Adding on to this, the lack of firefights helps to put more focus on the creepy, despondent atmosphere of the world. There will be certain areas of each world that present jump scares or random sound effects to unnerve you. Although I don't get scared easily, there were a few times where I was thrown off and even jumped due to a random scream, laugh, or other sound effect. Not even mentioning an area where the screen blacks out and you come to in a room full of creepy looking ceramic dolls. Thanks for the nightmare game. Of course, given the nature of the Chernobyl incident, there's plenty of radiation littering the world. If you remain in irradiated areas for too long, you'll see red markings on your health bar. This radiation poisoning essentially lowers your maximum health until you do something to cure yourself. So although walking around in dangerous zones won't necessarily outright kill you, lingering may result in an imminent death. In addition to your health, you also have a psyche meter. As I mentioned before, Igor isn't a natural born killer and tries to avoid causing bloodshed. When things get tough though, Igor can take out enemies, but at first, he takes damage to his psyche when doing so. I'm not sure what happens if the meter fully drains, as I never let it get to that point, but it is something that you'll need to be aware of. There are ways to avoid your psyche from being shattered. This brings me back to that warehouse. Being that you turn it into a makeshift base of operations, you can use items that you found in the world to build things for various effects. For example, you can build various workbenches that allow you to create weaponry, ammunition, and armor. You can craft beds so that your cohorts have somewhere to sleep after a hard day outside. Air filtration units and other furniture increase morale. You can even make a little garden so you'll always have a small source of food in case nothing could be found in the wild. In addition to this, your pals can train you in various skills to increase your chances of survival, provided that you have the skill points available. Some of them are simple enough, like inventory upgrades or permanent power increases to certain weapons. Others, like one Olivier teaches you, are more critical, like the ability to take down an enemy silently without shoving a knife through their neck. Once you learn this, Igor can put enemies to sleep without any detriment to his psyche. This is something you'll probably want to work on as soon as possible. There doesn't seem to be any rush to finishing the game, but you don't want to drag your feet either. Only the side jobs have a time limit, but these seem to be random and repeatable, perfect for your partners to grab important stuff while you are solving the mystery of your missing wife. In addition, your partners can get hurt on their missions. To help with this, you can equip them with any extra weapons or armor that you have lying around. They do not have to worry about ammo, so the equipment screen is fairly bare bones, but it works fine enough. But this brings me to one small issue I have with the game. The HUD is kinda clunky at times. You have no less than 3 different meters where your health is located, for your HP, psyche, and armor level. I'm not sure exactly how the armor level works, but it seems like the more metal or ceramic plates I have in my inventory, the higher this meter is. In addition though, you'll occasionally see a shield icon with a number, but I can't for the life of me figure out what this means. There's also occasionally a timer in the top right of the screen when you get into a gunfight, but again, I can't figure out what this is, since it goes away when all enemies in the area are defeated. To compound this, when you take damage, the borders of your screen get heavily obscured. I feel like this could have been dialed back just a bit, and the same effect would have been conveyed perfectly fine. Finally, with the inventory system itself, there is no sort option. This kinda sucks, but moving items manually is also a bit stiff, with items being transferred in different slots not going as smoothly as it could be. Again, these are minor complaints, but it did bear mentioning. At least the items that you find are helpfully highlighted for you. Right from the start of the game, you get access to a device that doubles as a Geiger counter and a resource locator. By right-clicking, the device will send out a pulse, which clearly shows anything useful nearby. This even pings items through walls, although you may not have necessary equipment to get to them. Any clues related to your wife are also displayed in this way, so use this device frequently. The world itself is absolutely breathtaking. Again, I'm a sucker for any game that takes place around Chernobyl, and Chernobylite is no exception. Run-down buildings, dense forests, layers of fog, it all sets the perfect mood for a creepy game. All of the non-hostile characters you meet are wearing applicable protective gear, but one thing that is strange is that their model doesn't always look like the face shots shown in the dialogue box. The worst offender of this is probably Sashko, who looks completely different, including the voice used. I don't know, this guy here doesn't look like he has that really deep voice that was used in conversations. But hey, I don't know, maybe this guy is just that deceiving. Back to the world, there is an option on the main menu that apparently lets you freely explore the exclusion zone. According to the Steam page of the game, the developers used the real area around Chernobyl as an inspiration to the game, and it shows. I would have tried this out, but I didn't want to ruin any part of the game that I haven't seen yet, since I haven't completed it, due to the time constraints. But it's definitely nice that the option is here. I'm about 10 hours into Chernobylite, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. I need to get around to finishing it, but again, I stopped so that I can get this review out in time. But what I've played so far, I've seen an amazingly crafted world, an engrossing story, a plot in which your choices can alter relationships with your allies, and stealth mechanics that favor people like me that don't particularly have the patience to be sneaky. Add in enough scares to keep you on the edge of your seat, and Chernobylite is the perfect game to play this time of year. It's a game that I do have to recommend, and I can't wait till I find the time to finish off this quest. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.